Hello everyone and welcome to day 5 of the 2024 Advent of Code. We're going to be using Python for this one and we'll just jump straight into it. The idea for this one is that we get an input that looks something like this, although it'll be a lot larger in the actual input. And if you think of these as books, each of these rows is a book, so there's 6 books here with these page numbers, so 75, 47, 61, 53, 29 is a book. And all of these are rules, and these rules say that the left page number has to come before the right page number. So for example, page marked 47 has to come before page marked 53, and 97 needs to come before 13, and it needs to come before 61 and 47. And the task is that we want to take each of these books, in this case each of these 6 books, and see which of them adhere to all of these rules. And so it's not too tricky today. Some of the trickiness comes from making sure that we read in the file correctly. So if I just show you here that if you read them all line by line, you get something like this. And if I was to strip off the end, you get something like this. And what I've decided to do is to have 2 arrays. One called rules and one called reports or books. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add them to the rules, add each of the lines to the rules until I hit this new line character, and then I'm going to start adding them to reports. And so to do that, I'm going to just make a flag called rules section true, and I know until then, well, at the point where this line that comes in is a new line character, which is done like that, I'm going to flip that to false. And then continue to the next line, because the line would have just been the new line character. And then I'm going to say if we're in the rules section, I want to take the line and I'm going to split it on this line like this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each of those. So I'm going to take each of those numbers, so number in this thing, and I'm going to make them ints. Because we know they all are, just rather than having them as strings, and then I'm going to add that to our set of rules, or our list of rules. And if it's not in the rules section, so it's in the report section or the rules section, the report section or the book section, I know that it looks like this, and so instead of splitting on that, I'm going to split on that, on the comma. And just as a little bit of a sanity check, I'm going to print both out. And let's see, yeah, I've not changed there, the 2 cases. Great, so we've got one here that's just a bunch of pairs. You could have these as tuples, that's completely fine. I've just left them as lists. And then we've got a bunch of reports at the bottom. And basically all we want to do is to see if a report is valid or not. So let's do something like report for report in report. If, let's say, we have a valid report, which we're going to make now, and we'll call this the answer, and we'll just print the answer so we can see what's going on. And what is a valid report? Well, it's when we take one of them and we apply all of the rules. And so what we want to do is we want to loop through the rules, so for rule in rules, and we essentially want to apply it. So, but we yeah, so firstly, let's just look at applying it, and then we'll look at an edge case. So we want to take the left one, which was going to be the report at the index of, the first part of this. The right one is going to be like that, and if the left one is greater than the right one, then we know it's false. Return false. And we'll do that for every rule. So if every rule this is not the case, then we know all of the rules have passed, and so we give true. And if we were to run this, we're going to hit an error. And the reason is because we're looking for report index with, in this case, 97, but the report doesn't have a 97 in. So we just want to check that both of these rules sides, so these two sides, say in this case the 47 and the 53, I think it was this one that it broke on, the 97, excuse me, and the 13. We just want to check that both of those are in this particular report. So if rule is not in report, or the other one is not in the report, then we can just continue, because this rule doesn't apply to this report, because it might say something about, for example, say we have neither of these, then the rule is true by default. It doesn't really say anything. If one of them's in here, then it doesn't say anything because there's nothing to compare it to. And if the other one's there, it's the same as the other case. So only when both of the rules in do we care about it. And if we were to run this, we can see we've got these three, which we can see is the case. Here, we get these ones. And the answer that it's looking for is to take the middle number, so 61, 53, and 29, and sum them up. And we can see here for us, we've got 61, 53, 29. We just want to get the middle number. So if I write something like get middle number out of this valid report, and I'm going to write the function here. And let's assume that they're odd size, which I think they all have to be, because there isn't a middle if not, and it doesn't tell us what to do if it's even. So let's just assume that it is, and so the index would be the length of the report divided by 2. And this is integer division. If we were to do something like this, and the length was 10, it would give 5.0. But if you were to do integer division like that, you get 5, which is exactly what we want, because we want to get the 5th element. We want to return this element. And that's going to hopefully give us 61, 53, and 29. 61, 53, 29. And the actual answer that we want is the sum of all of these, which gives us 143, which is the answer here. And if we were to do that on the real data, we get 5,639, which is exactly what we see here. Now moving on to part 2, it's going to be very similar to our last one, with one more change. So it says, okay, now get all of the incorrectly ordered updates or incorrectly ordered books. So in this case, let's say these three were all, correctly ordered, adheres to all these rules, and these didn't. It says take these bottom three, or take the three that don't satisfy all the rules, swap them around, shuffle these around until they do satisfy the rules, and then again calculate the middle number. And so because of the way that we've structured this, it's not too dissimilar actually. So let's say answer to part 2 is going to be the sum of the middle numbers for where this is false, and because this returns true false, yep, for it's false. And these reports, we don't just want to give this, because these reports are don't adhere to the rules, they're not valid. We want to shuffle them around to correct them. So we could say corrected reports, and we could define corrected report, and we want it to return a report that is corrected. We want to run through the list of rules, and then when we find one that it breaks, one of the rules that don't work, we'll switch those two numbers around. So let's say we go down here and we get that this is wrong. So say the 13th page is to the left of the 47th page. We'll swap those around, and then we'll do all of the rules again, and we'll just keep doing that. So say that all of these will work, this one won't work, so we'll swap them around. Then all of these will work because we've just checked it. This will work because we've just changed it, and we'll just keep going, and it'll slowly march down until all of them are all of them work, and then with that one we'll return it. So the way I'm going to do this is to start off with an index because we're going to want to keep moving through the report and moving back to the start, and this is a nice way to do it. So we could say whilst the index is less than the length of the report, we want to take is less than the length of the rules. So we're taking each of the rules. Let's get our rule, and then again, like before, we want to check that the rule applies to this report. So if this rule doesn't apply to the report, continuing would just loop, because we wouldn't be changing what rule we're getting each time. We want to increase the index and then move on to the next one. And then what we want to do is we want to say, very similar to here, if the left one is greater than the right one, which is the opposite of what we want, we'd want to swap them around. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change this slightly. I'm going to say if it's what we want, move on to the next one. Now this is the case. This is the case, which is what we had up here when we were returning false. So we know it's incorrect. The rule's not been adhered to. And what we want to do is swap them around. So we've got the report left, and we've got report right, and we want to swap them around. And the best way to do this is to take a temporary variable, make that this, then assign the left one to be the right one, and assign the right one to be the temporary one, which is the left one. And you might be thinking, why didn't we just do this? Because what happens is the left one becomes the value of the right, and then when you say set this to be this, well, this is this, so the right one would stay the same. But in this case, sorry, that way around, that's what we want. So we want to make it the left one, and we're swapping them around, and then because we've done a swap, we're going to go all the way back to the beginning and do all of the rules again. So let's run that. There's an issue here. Yeah. So I've said that the length of the report divided by 2. Non-type, am I not passing in report? Let's check down here. Middle number, corrected report. Of course, corrected report is not returning anything. And so since it's changing this report, it's going to do all these changes to this object and then pass it back. There we go. Then it took a second there, but we get, let's say we do it on the example data. We're going to get 143 and 123, which is there. And if we were to then do it on the real data, which we just had a sneak preview of, 5273, which is exactly what we want. So yeah, so a good one today, especially if you built up part one in the way that we did. You know, you were able to reuse what you'd done here and then just, you know, correct them. So you're very much able to build on part one if you wrote it in a nice structured way. So if you enjoyed, please leave a like, please leave a comment. I'm aiming to do one of these videos for each of the days. Not necessarily coming out on the day of the challenge, but trying to get all of them up if I can. So yeah, and I'll see you for day number 6.